Good morning, Kestutis. You just arrived yesterday night from Vilnius. Thanks to be here. Et à vous la parole, messieurs. The floor is yours.
Bonjour, je suis super content d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui. Je vais commencer par vous parler d'un vase. Vous voyez ici un vase, c'est un vase grec, un lécite. On est dans l'Antiquité. Et pourtant, sur ce vase, il y a une inscription écrite en grec ancien. Je vais vous le traduire, parce que je connais un peu, je suis assez bilingue en grec ancien. Et donc, la phrase, c'est « Achète-moi et tu feras une bonne affaire ». On est 500 ans avant Jésus-Christ, il n'y a pas de directeur marketing, il n'y a pas de directeur acquisition, on est d'accord? Et pourtant, on a là l'un des meilleurs call to action de la vente. Donc ça, pour nous, c'était un élément assez intéressant pour montrer l'importance de ce qu'on appelle l'attraction. Parce que pourquoi il y a cette phrase? C'est pour l'attraction. L'attraction, c'est la vente, c'est le client, c'est la croissance, et c'est d'une certaine manière ce qui définit aussi une start-up. Et c'est aussi finalement l'objet du livre écrit par Gabriel Weinberg qui s'appelle Attraction, et dont il parle du sujet de cette traction pour les startups et finalement comment la développer. Et donc, Gabriel Weinberg, c'est qui? C'est cofondateur de DuckDuckGo, un moteur de recherche américain, qui est spécialisé dans, enfin, c'est un moteur de recherche qui assure la privacy des internautes. Donc, il a créé en 2006 et depuis, ça monte bien. Concrètement, il est passé de quelques centaines de recherches par jour quotidiennes en 2006 à plus de 100 millions de recherches quotidiennes. Donc on peut dire que l'attraction, il maîtrise le sujet. Dans ce livre, il dit deux choses. La première, c'est que pour travailler l'attraction va de pair avec le produit. Concrètement, dès le départ, dès votre création, vous devez considérer, travailler le produit, le développement de produit, mais aussi le développement de votre attraction. Pourquoi? Parce que ça va vous permettre, d'une certaine manière, d'identifier les pièges très tôt dans votre parcours, la taille du marché, la viabilité de votre modèle économique, la tension concurrentielle, mais c'est aussi, ça va vous permettre de créer un cercle vertueux, puisque cette traction qui appelle des clients froids va vous permettre aussi d'avoir des retours d'expérience et d'améliorer le produit. Et donc, la règle des 50% est indispensable pour lui, dès le départ, à mettre en place, pour assurer la croissance. Le deuxième point qu'il partage, c'est la méthodologie pour y arriver. Très souvent, les startups, quand elles créent leur boîte, elles ont leur propre expérience, elles ont leurs propres a priori, et parfois, elles se détournent finalement des voies qui sont parfois même sous-estimées par la concurrence. L'idée pour la méthode Bullseye, c'est de considérer tous les champs du possible en termes de canaux de traction. Dès le départ, c'est le premier cercle, effectivement. Et l'enjeu, c'est de trouver le canal de traction sur lequel on va se concentrer et accélérer sa croissance. La deuxième phase consiste à avoir une phase de test, évidemment, où on va identifier les canaux qui ont le plus de chances de fonctionner pour déplacer le curseur là où on souhaite. Et enfin, on va identifier ce canal de traction qui va nous permettre de véritablement accélérer notre croissance. Et c'est ce que nous avons fait chez Heroiks avec un certain nombre de clients. On a identifié 15 canaux en fait, de traction média. Ça passe aussi bien des canaux digitaux, évidemment on parle d'influence, de social media, mais ça passe aussi par les canaux offline, le direct response TV notamment, ou le direct response radio ou d'autres canaux. Et ça c'est assez fondamental parce que tous ces canaux, on les a testés. Pour toutes, elles ont fonctionné à différents stades de leur vie, différents profils de start-up. Et en réalité, l'enjeu pour nos clients qu'on accompagne, c'est justement de pouvoir identifier celui qui a le plus de chances de fonctionner et de faire justement des tests, Patrick en parlait tout à l'heure, des tests peu coûteux qui permettent finalement de minimiser les risques tout en testant les meilleurs canaux. Et donc, Vinted aujourd'hui, c'est un exemple parfait de cette méthodologie Bullseye, cette capacité à identifier un canal de traction, à le scaler et jusqu'à saturation, et ensuite à itérer ce modèle de méthodologie Bullseye. Donc on va le voir maintenant avec Katie qui va vous en parler plus en détail.
Merci Serge. Bonjour à tous. Je suis désolé, mais je ne peux pas parler français très bien, donc je vais présenter en anglais. Yes, that's all French from me. Basically, I'm here today to talk about how Vinted used different marketing channels to grow, and give an example of what Serge just talked about, the bullseye approach. So Vinted nowadays is a fairly large company, lots of customers, lots of employees, lots of countries being covered, but it hasn't been like that all the time. Actually, the story began in 2008. It was a hobby project of 2 students in Lithuania. One of the students was Milda, was moving between cities, and she just saw that she had way too many clothes, so she needed to sell them. She couldn't bring them to the other place. And her friend, just as a programmer, just helped her set up a web page where she started selling everything. And it wasn't specifically started as a startup, something for money. It was just a hobby, but it's kind of took off from there. And for the first couple of years, there was very little of anything happening there. You can see up to 2011, it's essentially flat. There are a couple more countries which launched during that time, Germany included, under different names, with couch surfing friends. And the marketing at that time was essentially like everything that doesn't cost you really money. So you do kind of mouth-to-mouth, viral marketing, some kind of stunts PR. So you choose what you can do at that time. Fortunately, at that time, we started seeing that, yes, this could be something more as a business. We started to attract angel investors and funds already over there, and started doing quite a bit more things. So a couple of more countries launched, and the platform grew already, a couple of thousand new items per day over there. And we started rebranding properly into Vinted. We had a lot of different names everywhere before that. And since we already had a little bit of money, we started doing digital marketing. And because of that, we started seeing quite a bit of growth. So all kinds of paid Facebook, Instagram, Google search, referral, voucher campaigns, lots of different things, which worked quite well. We attracted our first big investors, and then we started launching all the new countries. So we started doing lots of things, lots of different directions really fast. And well, it was all nice, but it was still a startup which didn't have any kind of business model. So we could spend money on marketing, but it was pure cost. It didn't earn us any money. And we had to figure out how to actually start making money. And what we did, well, we still grew, but what we did is that we tried to monetize a platform, and you can see the result over there. We completely stalled out for a couple of years. So here we did the seller monetization. So essentially, every person who sold an item would pay 20% fee to Vinted. People really didn't like that. And even though we tried to scale out digital, it just became way too expensive to attract people on that time. It was just not efficient. So there was a very clear cap on what we could do over there. We had lots of fraud and scam. There were weekends where we lost €1 million just to fraud, and we were a smaller startup at that point. It hurt really a lot, and we just couldn't bring in users fast enough to cover for everybody that was leaving. So at that point, we really had to ask a question. Is this really working? Can we proceed? Should we do something else? We probably should make some hard calls. And hard calls came. First hard call was that we had to completely move around our business model, change the monetization from the seller fee to the buyer fee, and make it 3 times lower. So we would not limit people posting items on our platform, because that's kind of our main thing as a business, and only the buyers would pay. But this also meant that we got 3 times lower revenue compared to what we had before. So we had a lot of costs, but not a lot of inflow of new money. So we also had to save on our expenses, which meant closing offices, downscaling, letting go people. It was a very, very hard time. But we started balancing out the revenues and the expenses. But then, because we decreased the buyer fee so much, by 3 times, we basically had a very low margin business, And a low margin business works only when it is at scale. You need massive amounts of people to come to your platform and use it. And what that meant was that from a digital first approach, we had to start going into mass media. And mass media, it had a lot more reach, you could invest a lot more money. We were not sure about efficiency. For us, it was very risky. We were kind of at the end of a line for us. But what we saw is that it worked, and with this approach, we had the market, product, and marketing fit. So switching the buyer fee and optimizing the OpEx achieved the market and product fit, whereas the changing the marketing approach achieved the product and marketing fit. And what that led to was that you can see we had been stalling out, but suddenly, once we started putting money into TV, we started really going up massively. So in 1 year, we achieved more than we had in the 8 previous years combined, which was a really big result for us. We managed to grow 2.5 times, and coincidentally, most of that growth came from France. So very happy about that one. And basically, after that year, we said, okay, we think we found the winning formula. This is how we can scale our business. This is how we can grow. And over that year, we also established several key principles for marketing that we use nowadays. So first off is that any marketing channel that we engage in has to deliver sufficient scale. That means that any kind of local events, pop-up things, we don't do those. Those are way too low return for us for the amount of effort and budget we put in. And this limits us to like really, really big channels immediately. Secondly, we have to have measurability. If we don't know if we will know the result afterwards, whether it works or doesn't work, then we don't do it. And in this case, again, some channels start getting eliminated. Maybe a good example is cinema. It can generate a lot of impressions across lots of different cities and so forth. But to actually see the impact of it, we couldn't do it. And the last one, obviously, it has to be efficient. So you have to have scale, you have to be able to measure, and it has to deliver a good financial return. And once we had all of those 3 principles defined, the prioritization for us very, very clear. We had to do TV at that point. There was no other mass media which had the same power at that time. And TV is a little bit of a tough cookie, because when we were a digital-first company, so you can see those yellow lines, that shows the impact of digital, or you could say performance marketing, on sales or inflows or any kind of other sort of KPI you have. But it also shows that it's short-term, it jumps and it goes down. It jumps and it goes down. And it doesn't go up long-term. Well, in some cases it does, but for us it didn't. And the problem with this is that it's very hard to show TV results where you only increased a little bit your top management and say this is working great, whereas digital in the same time had something 3 times higher. So we took a bit of a leap of faith on this one, and we started building it up, and we saw that after several months of doing it, we were way above the previous levels that we were in. Now, obviously, there's an issue with measurement and reporting, as I just said, but that you can still solve to a large degree. So on the short term, you can actually pick whatever sort of KPI you want, look at the specific spots that you aired on TV and see what kind of impact it had on a minute basis for your website or app or whatever. And while this will be a very small part of the total effect, it is very indicative of what you will receive long-term. And long-term, then, you can look at those values, what are the natural ones that after the media campaigns, the KPI drops down to, and you can see them increasing. And this is our actual data from France, by the way. So we saw that very clearly happening even after the first campaigns, and so we immediately started pushing it so we would grow faster and faster. And this is where it led to. So you can see that little black dot over there, that was the high point of the previous graph. Now we're somewhere up there with 3 million new items per day. So it's literally impossible to view through all of the items on Vinted for a person. But obviously this is not the end. There are still a lot of things that we're doing. So we're diversifying. There's other reach media, which is becoming prominent now, all the online videos, broadcaster VODs, radio out of homes, maybe not new, but still relevant. Optimizing, so for example, how do you approach TV? Do you only do classical ads? We do non-standard TV, integrations, brand, whatsoever, which work very well for us, everything else. And obviously adapting. You can't have the same cookie cutter solution everywhere. You need to adapt to the situation. Maybe there's different pricing, different viewership, and so forth. After entering 20 or so markets, we saw very, very different conditions where the same approach just doesn't work. So at the end, I just wanted to put a little bit about France, because obviously it's our flagship market, and we have a lot of people using it here. More than 1 in 2 people actually have installed the Vinted app in France, and we released a sustainability report where we saw that back in 2021 alone, because of Vinted, more than 200,000 kilotons of CO2 emissions were prevented because first-hand items weren't chosen. So we see that France is a very great flagship market for us, and we hope to continue to grow it in the future. And just to kind of tell you what the main takeaways could be. So one is faulty assumptions can kill your business. So first, we believe that digital marketing channels are the ones to use because we're a digital company, but we saw that over time it really changed. You have to adapt to the situation. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. So for us, mass marketing worked because we're a low-margin business requiring mass marketing. For others, it might be different conditions and different requirements, so same solutions based on your business specifics might be very different. And last is prioritize. So in the beginning, when we started scaling out, we started doing all this digital stuff, all these new country launches, everything. But when we really succeeded was when we focused, okay, there's France and there's TV. So now let's do it the best way we can. And we focused everything on that. And that's when we started really growing. So I think that really illustrates the bullseye approach of how do you nail down those markets, how do you combine with your business and market specifics, how do you approach it. So thank you very much, merci beaucoup, and talk to you later.
Merci Serge, thank you Casey.